think we're live now. Oh, crap. Yeah. I need a minute. Sound. Everything. Cool. Yeah, here we go. Let's get started. Just take this off for a minute. Let's see this. Huh. Okay, I think we got it. Anyway, let's get started on this. It's past 9 o'clock. There's a car race going on, like half a mile from here, and it's I don't know how much it's gonna we're gonna hear it doing this live stream. Anyway, I made our agenda for today, so let's look into that one. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. So today, well, welcome. We're always listening. This is still kind of a test thing, so let's see where it's going. Seems like we got 2 people online. That's not too bad. Gotta start somewhere. Anyway, today's stream, some thoughts on the channel. I think I will use the live streams to talk about what is going on with the channel. I think that's an interesting thing to talk about. Do like this. Some sound in the background. Anyway, and then I'll talk about the video that came out this week. Some thoughts about the content of that one. So let's just get into it. Yeah, so thoughts about the channel. Yeah, I already spoke a bit about this. I think I'll make it part of these live streams. First of all, I would like to do the live streams. I think it was pretty funny to do the one last week, and yeah, we'll see if we can make it a thing. So a little bit about what is going on with the stream. Maybe that will be the second point, and the first one will be about the actual content, the things that goes on the channel. But yeah, for now I would like to do it once a week and see if I can keep up with that, and maybe someone will be interested in seeing what's going on. So that's the that's the plan. And I think it's okay that we don't have 1 million right now because I'm still learning. So that's a thing. Yeah, I'll do weekly, let's call them content videos. It seems to be the way to do it with YouTube. I've called it Iron Man style because it's yeah, I think there will be some weeks where it will be a little bit rough, but that's just how it's gonna be. For some reason I got sound. Let me just check one thing. Yeah, okay. Could just hear my own voice somewhere. So anyway, it's gone out. So yeah, the idea is essentially if you wanna be something on YouTube, you basically need to post so many videos that YouTube has an idea about what your channel is all about. It has to make a segmentation for your channel, and then it has to pair it with some of the segments or user groups that it has determined among the users of YouTube, and that just takes a while. You have to find your niche, and people talk about, yeah, maybe 25, 50, and up to 100 videos before that happens. And if you do one video a week, it's gonna take maybe 1 to 2 years. Pretty hard work. So that's one way to do it. Of course, you could do 2 or 3, but I think that might be a bit unrealistic. I mean, if you count the live streams, then it of course goes faster, but I won't count them towards this. So so that's the plan, and just keep pushing. That's how you do it, apparently. So I call it Ironman style because I used to do Ironman, and that's training like 2 times a day, 7 days a week. And the thing about it is, you cannot just postpone training. You cannot even postpone it for a day, because if you skip 2 training passes this day, you will have 4 the next day, and that's just impossible. So yeah, I'm used to hang in there and do the grind work, and that's what I would like to do here. So that's sort of my structure, to do it once a week, and then I have to improve within the frame of that week. So it's all about doing it quicker and leaner and all those kind of words, so I can get some good videos out. Right now I'm still struggling a little bit, honestly, and I think it's a good idea that I can see that I can improve quite a lot, but of course it's also a little bit painful to watch sometimes. But it is what it is, and you gotta start somewhere. Let's see what the next, yeah. Again, yeah, this is basically what it takes to get a channel up and running. You don't get it overnight. I mean, of course, there are outliners. The Ronaldos and Messis of YouTube can probably do it in a month or 2, but no, we are not the all Olympian gold medalists. So yeah, at least I'm not in this. So it's gonna take a while, and of course, if you want to help out, you can like the videos, watch them, subscribe to the channel, and all those kind of things. It all helps. It makes YouTube help YouTube establish a user group segmentation. So that'd be great. Then I invested in a new camera. So got tired of using my iPhone. I think maybe the videos were okay, but now I can just turn it on and then start shooting. So again, it's back to this Iron Man style kind of thing, that you just want to make things as easy as possible. There should be as few excuses as possible. So you just have to turn on the computer, turn on the camera, and then push a button, and then you go. At least in theory, there's always something, but you don't have to set up a video and do all those kind of, or a camera and all those kind of things, and the lighting is there and all that. So pretty close to just pushing a button already. So that's kind of nice. But there are really no excuses or if you have a bad day or something like that. So it's also all about making it smooth and yeah, making the whole process structured so the main focus can actually be on what goes into the videos content wise. Yeah, so here's the big goal. You can always discuss whether you should say it or not, but why not? So the basic goal is to reach out to the world by addressing everyday problems based on the thoughts of Martinus. I think I should have said. So essentially, instead of, you can make videos that takes a departure in Martinus and tells about what his world picture is. And I could probably do the same, but what I would like to do is try to figure out how can I take a topic from Martinus' world picture and then say, okay, how is this related to our everyday life? And then let the video start from this everyday life issue, thing, whatever, and then view it with Martinus' world picture. So the thing is, at least as I see it, is that if you do a Martinus video where you go into, let's just say what the video from this week it was, I wanted to talk about the analysis of the living being, and I could have said, oh, the analysis of the living being, and that would be, there are probably like 2,000, maybe 10,000 people in the world who are even interested in that topic, knowing it's, if you say Martinus' analysis of the living being, the group of people interested in that is so small in a way. So try to think a little bit bigger and say, hey, this is a way of addressing who we are, those kind of things. So the entrance to actually watching the video becomes broader, wider, and more people might actually be interested in seeing it. At least that's the idea, and then we'll see what happens. Who knows? So yeah, already spoke about it. Weekly live streams. I will do them here Sunday. Might be better Sunday afternoon for the Americans, but I don't think that's sustainable right now. So I'll try to do it here at 9 a.m. in the morning, and yeah, I think the Americans will have to watch the reruns and ask questions in the comments instead, and we can bring them up the next week. The whole idea with the live stream is that it could be a little bit more interactive and could pick up some comments during the week and try to give some answers on them. I think it's a pretty informal and cool way of making videos compared to the actual main videos on the channel, which are scripting and recording and editing and all those kind of things, which is fun as well, but this is just more like give it a go and go ahead, right? So that's nice. Yeah, and it just seems fun in a way, so that's cool. Yeah, then I started working on Instagram. I got an Instagram profile for the channel, Facebook page. I think it was already there, but maybe both of them actually were there. And also got a mail list, so I'll post them in the description, and I'll get the words out when a new video or live stream comes out. I'll probably wait a little bit still until I go all in on the social media stuff and so forth. But I'll get there eventually. So I think that was, yeah, links in the description. Yeah, that was it. And now the big scary thing. This is the difference between the iPhone and the new camera. And to the left here, we got the screenshot from last week's video, which was shot on our iPhone. And this is from the new camera, and you can just see the level of details and so forth. It's just completely different. So still getting used to it. I'm not a cameraman in any way, so I have to learn it. But yeah, sit down, watch a couple of YouTube videos. At least I found one video where it's just push this button, push that button. I don't know what I'm doing, but it seems to be working okay. And there's so much you have to do with a YouTube channel. Actually, there's so many things you have to learn. So sometimes you just, okay, I can get a monkey see, monkey do kind of thing. Just tell me what I need to do, and I'll do that. I don't want to know about the details yet, about ISO levels and whatever, right? I just know I bought a camera, I bought some lights that are actually quite good, or good enough, or at least, let's say, something I can grow with, and at some point I might get more into what it actually can do and so forth. So maybe I should look a little more up. Let's see, just watching down. Anyway, so that's the new camera. So now I'll go into what this week's video was about. Let me see. I think we got. Yeah, I don't think I'll post it right now. Anyway, let's get into it. So this video this week was about the difference between living beings and non-living beings. So this was back to this idea about how can we actually use the analysis that Martinus makes to make it relevant in some ways. And this is supposed to, the idea is to address the thinking about what is actually alive and what is dead. So that's the approach here. So so let's take a look at that. Yeah, so the first part is about what Martinus calls the triune principle. That's the basic analysis of the living being. And I believe, yeah, I actually made a slide on this that I also use in the video. So let's go through the analysis of the living being. It's also in the video, but let's just give it a shot here as well. So essentially there are three principles. That's why he calls it the triune principle. That's the analysis, put the three principles put together. So the first principle is the I, and it's the I that, not an I like this, but the I behind everything that happens. So this is when we talk about I do something, or when I refer to your I, and that's part of your living being, I talk about you are doing something. So it's this thing, or there's something that's behind the living being. It's sort of the conductor. It's the thing that puts direction into what the living being is doing, what it wants to do and don't want to do. And that's all what it is. It's not really any concrete thing. It's not something you can go and find in the brain or something. It's just something there is that has this function, or this thing it can do to put a direction in the living being. Wrong key. So this I, this I has the ability to create. So that's the second principle of the living being. So without, well, let's just talk about what it is. The ability to create is essentially an ability to create is essentially the ability to change something. It is to move something. It is to not create something new actually, but it's essentially changing something to something else. Martinus talks about that nothing cannot come from nothing. So it's more like a ability to recreate more than it is an ability to create something new. So it's the ability to create, that's sort of the ability to change things, and Martinus also talks about it's the ability to perceive. So it's sort of the receiving end of things. So this is the ability for the eye to send something out and to receive it again. And so the third part we need in order to have a living being is something that can actually be changed. And I translated into the created. You could also say it's the matter. It's the thing that's actually moving. And together these three principles makes up the living being. So essentially, I think I can point with my mouse here. We have the eye that has the ability to create. So there's a process here, right? So you can say the eye has the ability to create. So it sends some kind of desire. This is the first step to make it concrete. And this is actually where the concrete thing is. So it's not a spacious thing. It happens together within itself in a way. But anyway, so you have this eye behind what is created, and it's sort of, it's glued together by this ability to actually create something and perceive it again. So there's a process where the eye goes through this ability to create, becomes created, and it returns via the ability to perceive that, goes back to the eye. Then again, based on that perception or what is just experienced, we'll have a new desire in life that gets created and then comes out here. Of course, it doesn't exactly happen like one-to-one. Now the eye wants to do A or B, and then A and B happens. There's a whole chapter or whole area topic that you need the talent in order to do that, and they are actually here in this part of the living being. So Martinus talks about talent kernels that we can develop over time, and sometimes we have the talents in order to do things, and sometimes we don't. But we can practice them, we can learn them if they are like normal. At least there are some things we cannot do, but essentially we can learn a lot, right? So if we want to play the piano and we kind of suck at it, or really bad, then we can sit down and we can start practicing. And these, in the beginning, it will sound, we might not even know ourselves how awful it might sound, but over time we will start to learn and know the nuances and so forth, and we'll gain talents where we can actually start doing the things we want to do. So this is essentially the analysis of the living being, and Martinus also talks about that these are the three things you really need in order to have a living being. And he generally argues that if you take one of them away, let's say you take the eye away, then you have an ability left to create, and you have to create it, but you have nothing to actually use the ability, and you have nothing, so nothing will actually happen, so the created won't change. So essentially there won't be any change, and his argument is essentially that, well, first of all, we can see there is something that changes. So if there's only silence, or like an absolute silence or absolute no movement, that would be obvious that that's not the case in life, because we can experience that there is something that's changing, right? At least at that abstraction level, I hope we can all agree that there's something that changes. And he even goes into saying that, well, if you actually don't agree on that one, just the fact that you can say it, that you don't agree on that something is changing, that's actually a proof that something is changing, because you are stating that, and that statement is a change. The thing that you are stating something is changing something. So so that's the argument for, and saying that the eye has to be part of it. Again, if you take away the ability to create, in that case you will have an eye that can set a direction, but it won't have any ability to manifest that part. So the created, even if it's there, it will never really change, right? Because there's no ability to change it. And again, he says if nothing can change, then there will be this absolute silence and there will be no life, as I just explained with the eye. So that's kind of the same argument, but in a different version. And the same goes with the created. In that case, if you have the eye and the ability to create, but you don't have anything to change, it's great that you have something that sets a direction in your life. You have the ability to really do something, but you don't have the matter or the material or something to actually change. So in that case, we'll have the same again, right? There won't be anything to perceive, there won't be anything to change, so there won't be any changes. So you will have this, absolute silence again, which is again not what we see in real life. So so in that case, it says we really need all three principles to have a living being. And I've personally spent I think I buy into that one, that's actually three things you need. That's the argument is so concrete or convincing that I think it's hard, so if not impossible, to argue against. What is a little bit more tricky is to say, okay, so what is the eye, what is the ability to create, and what is to create it? And Martinus has a long explanation on that the eye is this unmanifested thing, or not thing, but it's something there is. It's not more than that. And if you take a materialistic brain researcher, for instance, he'll probably say it's part of the brain and it somehow happens on this process. I think they would agree that this actually happens as a living being, but the status of especially the eye and to some extent the ability to create, they'll probably say that's part of the matter of the created, and that's a little bit more tricky to actually be convinced about. This is not a material thing. This is non-material. It's just something that is without any details. Anyway, so that's the living being. Let's get back. Yeah, so that's the analysis of the living being. Then I go into some examples of what is alive and what is dead. And that's a little bit more tricky thing to go into, actually. I mean, we know the typical ones where we have a little bit to drink. It's getting really warm in here right now, but I cannot hear the race cars, so at least that's nice. Yeah, some examples. I give some examples in the video. I mean, we know that we agree that, or we know for sure that we know that we are alive, right? We are alive. We know that animals are alive, and we have some idea that plants are alive as well. Martinus extend the idea of living beings quite a lot. He has this notion that claims that Earth is a living being, solar system is a living being, galaxies are a living being, the whole universe is a living being. So all this, what he calls macro living beings, are living beings. And then we can also go into the micro living beings, which are organs, cells, molecules, atoms, and so forth. So in one way, he extends what is alive and what is not alive. But there's still this question, so what actually differentiate something alive with something that's not alive? Because there are things that are not alive, right? I have this microphone here, right? That's not a living being. That's just a thing. If you go into the real what's inside it, into this microcosmos in this microphone, maybe there are some living being in there somewhere, I don't know, but the microphone in itself, or table, as I use as example in the video, it's not a living being. And And why? Well, at least that's how I understand it, right? It's not a living being because there is no, it's not a life unit. That's the term we need to look into here. There is no I that expresses itself within this. You might argue about minerals are life as well, and I'm not completely sure how that works, but to me it's not a, at least in the physical world, it's not a life unit in itself. So it's not like, even though we say the whole universe is alive, we're not saying that the individuals, I mean, the whole universe exists of living beings, right? Like galaxies and solar systems and someone like us and so forth. But there are obviously things that are not alive or non-living things. And the difference between something that's a life unit and not a life unit, here's my point coming finally, is that there's an I between I in like the I and an ability to create behind a life unit. As soon as this I and ability to create is no longer connected to this matter unit, we can talk about our own body. That's the example I used in the video. In that case, we know it as when we die, right? Or we become unconsciousness to some extent. Let's just talk about it. So when we die, right, or when someone dies, our body turns from this living being or life unit, turns into a corpse, essentially. So the difference between a living a body with that we consider alive and a corpse is essentially that there is no longer an I and the ability to create connected to that specific body as a body. We can still have organs and so forth, cells and so forth, where we have living beings in the body, even after the I and the ability to create for the human that was in this body. Can't really say it like that, but anyway, you know what I mean, right? At some point, when you died, when the body is no longer suited for having it as a, that the living being cannot express itself in the body anymore, it leaves it, and you essentially, this is the process that we call dying, and it turns into a corpse. So that's the difference between living beings and non-living beings. So so what's the challenge here? Yeah, well, this can be pretty hard to, I mean, this is pretty theoretical in a way. I mean, we get told that when you're alive, you have an I and an ability to create behind the body, and when you die, there's a corpse left, right? And we know that. We can see that. That's not so difficult for us. But because it's pretty close to us, we have a pretty good understanding of it. But what about, Martinus talks about the moon as well, and he said that's actually a corpse. But we cannot see that, right? How do we know? I mean, we can guess and we can say, yeah, Martinus said it, but we ourselves, I mean, we can speculate, right? It seems pretty dead in a way because it's all dust and so forth. But he also talks about some of the other planets are actually they're alive, right? And they don't have living beings on the surface as well, as far as we know, at least. And I don't think we'll find it. So that they are still physical, but Martinus talks about planets having a much more mental life than we have. We are quite physical living beings, so they could actually be alive. I don't know for sure, but maybe Mercury or Mercury or Mars or some of the planets are alive. He talks about the sun is alive; it's burning. That's not what if we don't have Martinus, right? How should we know? you can point at whatever, right? Also the micro living beings, what is actually alive and what is not alive, right? So we have this challenge that we don't have this permanent intuition that much as Martinus had, so he could actually see it, but we don't. So I'm actually talking about something. I'm actually talking about the next point. Anyway, let's just put it here. So yeah, that I'm talking about the practical experience of the eye and the ability to create. So the thing is, we can experience the physical world, and we can indirectly understand the mental part of it, but we cannot see the eye and the ability to create. We cannot experience it, and that happens the day we get cosmic consciousness, or at least some cosmic glimpses. But for now, we kind of have to go the other direction. So we have to look at the matter, and we have to we have to rely on assumptions and hypotheses, right? So does it look like it could be a living being? Yes or no? And of course, from this theory, this view on life, we have some characteristics that we can look for. Is it something that can actually express and do things on its own? And if that's the case, there's a potential that it could be a living being. If it doesn't, then it's at least not a physical living being. Then you might ask, so what about AI and computers and artificial intelligence in general, right? Because they look pretty much alive. But we know that these are basically just big calculating machines, and especially some of the new AI that has come out is essentially what is it called? Probability calculation. So essentially it finds what is the most probable next word that I should say. It's not even an I, right? It's just a big calculator with a lot of that has been set up in a specific way, so it became a model for a language, and it can essentially make some qualified guesses, and that's why it can be quite convincing sometimes, because it can just figure something mind-boggling out sometimes, and sometimes it's also just very wrong, because it simply doesn't know anything. So that's one part of it, and the other part is it doesn't do anything on its own. And if it does something that looks like it does something on its own, it's not. It has been set up by some living being, and that's us as humans that has set it up, right? So that's an automatic process. There are really no intervention from any living beings that kind of changes the direction or anything. I mean, we have some level of free will, right? We can. Right now I'm standing up. I could have been sitting down if I wanted to do that. That's my free will. That comes within. That comes from me. It's not something. I mean, you can. Maybe I got. What is it called? I mean, I might have been influenced by some of the stuff that happens. Maybe my back. I wanted to just stand up to be a little bit more live or whatever, right? Of course, I took the decision based on something, but at the end of the day, I actually took the decision, and I believe I had a chance to actually do A or B. If you're a computer, you just do what you have been literally what you have been programmed to do. So that is what it is, so that was a lot of talk about AI and AI and different stuff. So the main difference is, do we have this iron, the ability to create behind it, and does it? And you can, if you cannot see it with intuition, you can try to at least, or you can try to sort of speculate a bit. And if it's something where things are happening or coming from within, I think it's not the Martinus way of talking about it, as far as I know. But that's sort of my own thinking about it, at least when we talk about artificial intelligence and so forth, they are not living beings in this way of defining it, because they are simply not changing any direction. They are just they're deterministic, basically. Yeah, so let me say that was the practical experience of the eye and the ability to create with intuition. So just a few words on this understanding of the living being with these three, the eye, the ability to create, and the created, and why it's so difficult to understand. And just gonna echo Martinus a bit, and he essentially says it's so difficult to understand because it's actually so simple. We are so used to think in things. So if the eye, let's just take that, that's probably the most difficult to understand. If we take the eye, we really need it to be more than just, I mean, the analysis of the eye is basically something that is, and it's something that has a desire to do something, and it's not even concrete in any way. It's just a desire to experience life. That's it. If you start to think about it, want to go in one direction or another direction, you're already beyond the eye, and you're into the ability to create. So it's just very, very, very simple. Because it is so simple, it can be pretty hard to grasp. You really want to put it into some mechanical view or something similar, right? But you really have to just take all that away and just say this is just the ability to set a direction, not a concrete direction, but just wanting something, and that's it. If you start putting details on it, you're already wrong, and that can be pretty difficult. I mean, let's imagine you have a brain researcher, right? That's the guys we love to talk about, right? So let's talk about sometimes, right? Because they're supposed to be really smart, and they are. So they're actually trying to figure out where in our brain is this eye. What is, because that's, I mean, and it makes sense, right? Because that's what we can see, right? And if you're a real researcher, you don't go into too much assumptions and speculation, right? You really need to base your things on what you can experience, right? And if you only have the physical senses, that's what you experience, right? You only experience that we have a body, right? But you at the same time experience that we have this eye. We know that, right? And we have the ability to create. I think that's pretty, I don't know if anyone would disagree with that, but that's pretty obvious in some ways, right? So if you put those two together, that we have the eye and the ability to create, and we only have a body, right? Because that's the only thing we can see, right, as materialistic researchers. So it makes perfect sense. It's actually not that stupid, right? It's pretty smart in a way that you will start looking at what you know, that it should be somewhere, and it seems like it's coming from the brain, right? And Martinus will say that as well, right? But it will just say there's more to it than just the brain. There's a whole mental, spiritual part of us that we don't see, and even that is the creator, right, as well. So behind that as well, you start going into the eye and the ability to create, and that's even behind the whole spiritual world and all that as well. Anyway, so you have so it makes sense that that as materialistic researchers, that you think in terms of finding things in the physical world, right? And we know it's there, so you gotta look for that. It just makes a lot of sense to what they do actually. The problem is that the assumption, it's an assumption, right, that there's only a materialistic world, a physical world. You cannot really prove that there's nothing beyond the physical world. And Martinus is pretty clear that there is something more to it, not just the physical world and a spiritual world. That's one thing, but there's also an eye and the ability to create sort of behind that as well. So saying that doesn't exist is, at least according to Martinus, in a way a faith in some ways, and it's not scientific, but that's his view on it. So yeah. Anyway, so I think that was sort of the gist of the last video. I think that was a comment actually. Next time I will have found whatever comments is been given. I think it was for the vegetarian one. No. One second. Lesson learned. Okay, it was actually to this video. Yeah, so question for this week is essentially, well, not essentially, it is basically what has been asked is, so the difference between a living being and a dead thing is something that we cannot see. Yeah, in a way it is. So in that, I mean, we cannot experience it yet without this intuition, which is, it is what it is, right? It doesn't mean that it's not correct just because we cannot see it, but essentially we need intuition to see the eye and the ability to create behind the living being. So we will have it theoretically for now. There's a lot of signs in the traditional science that are theoretical. We don't know if it's correct or not. It's still used. One of the ways people are thinking science is that, is it plausible? We don't know if it's real, but is it plausible? That means, could it be like that? So you can ask, could we have an eye and an ability to create that's eternal and behind the whole thing? To me, it's plausible. So I'll go for it. And in that way, it's with all the arguments that and reason for it that Martinus comes with, I think it's a pretty good bet on how things are put together in the world. I don't have a better way of looking at it. So yeah, I would go for it. But anyway, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be critical thinkers. We shouldn't be searching and trying to figure out whether it's correct or not. But that's, of course, completely up to what we want to do. Ourselves, what interest we have. We find that it all sounds good and we don't have to think more about it. That's without any irony or sarcasm. Quite good and totally fine. Again, I think the important thing here is not so much to do things in a specific way. When it comes to Martinus, it's more about doing what I think is correct and or the right way to do it, and then not be too intolerant towards each other. That can be an interesting challenge sometimes. Anyway, here was the slide from before, and yeah, on top of that, I will just say thanks for watching. Didn't write anything else here. Yeah, thanks for watching, and you wanna have more videos on this topic and different topics related to Martinus, and you wanna follow the channel, just subscribe, give the videos a like, and it actually helps the channel quite a lot. So hope you will stick around, and I think I will call it here. I will be back in a week on Sunday at 9. I'll see what we have on the agenda. I hope to evolve this idea fly stream a bit over time. Right now it's all about just getting some experience, figuring out how to prepare and all those kind of things, and what works the first time might not work the second, and all those kind of things. And right now it's just about getting some experience with how the whole thing works. And yeah, is the 9 a.m. a good time, or is it better in the afternoon? What can hold up? Is it better like 8 p.m. on a Monday, and all those kind of things? I hope it will just work. We'll find out over time what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. So you have watched this video so far, and I guess you will be watching on a video. Thanks for sticking out, and have a good one until next time. Thanks for watching.